let's get into why I believe not only that Viserion will survive to the end, becoming the legacy, the new mother of dragons, but how she will also retire to Vaesdolthrak, specifically the mother of mountains and womb of the world. Among the Dothraki is the first time in Daenerys' life that she feels home. It's the first time she feels a sense of belonging, the first time that she feels any semblance of safety. The grass swayed and sighed with each breath of wind. The air was warm on her face, and Dany felt at peace. She slowed to a trot and rode out onto the plain, losing herself in the green. The air was rich with the smell of horseflesh and Dany's sweat and the oil in her hair. Dothraki smells. They seemed to belong here. She was barefoot, with oiled hair, wearing Dothraki riding leathers and a painted vest given to her as a bride gift. She looked as though she belonged there. A few other excerpts. These plains were a part of them, and of her now. Then, they are my people now, Dany said. You should not call them savages, brother. She saw sunlight on the Dothraki sea, the living plain, rich with the smells of the earth and death. Wind stirred the grasses, and they rippled like water. Drogo held her in his strong arms. The stars smiled down on them, stars in the daylight sky. Home, she whispered, but suddenly the stars were gone, and across the blue sky swept the great wings, and the world took flame. So not only does Dany feel at home among the Dothraki, but these dragons were born among the Dothraki. This is in the prologue of A Feast for Crows. The tales are not the same. Dragons in Ashai, dragons in Karth, dragons in Meereen, Dothraki dragons, dragons freeing slaves, all speak of dragons and a beautiful young queen. George is explicitly calling them Dothraki dragons here. This is Dany to A Dance with Dragons. She's told, the black dragon has been flying north across the river toward the tall grasses of the Dothraki sea. And then it is literally Drogon who carries her to the Dothraki at the end of A Dance with Dragons. So it's establishing this sort of pull for Drogon to the Dothraki Sea where he was born, and we can assume that the other two dragons who were also born there would have a similar instinctual pull. And then you have the entire relationships that the dragons have with the Dothraki, specifically Dany's handmaids. And I very much believe that Dothraki dragons are a union of two lines of the Great Empire of the Dawn, because I believe that the Dothraki were of the Great Empire of the Dawn, and I believe that the Valyrians were also of the Great Empire of the Dawn. So it's absolutely no coincidence that Daenerys is the stallion who mounts the world, that she is this union of these two lines. So why then the Mother of Mountains and the Womb of the World specifically? First and foremost, because it is already a sacred site to both the Dothraki and to Daenerys. And while it's clear that the Dothraki, Vaesdolthrak, the Mother of Mountains, the Womb of the World, are already very significant in Dany's story, that significance is just going to become greater as her story unfolds in The Winds of Winter. At the end of Dance, her and Drogon are being positioned to return to Vaesdolthrak, where they're going to kill the Khals, they're going to liberate the Dosh Khaleen, and then I think it would be very poetic if they were to emerge from the womb of the world to ascend the Mother of Mountains. And from there, Daenerys will claim her place as the Khal of Khals, the stallion who mounts the world. And I say it's poetic because it would be a recreation of the Dothraki myth of the origin of man, which says that 1,000 years ago, the first man emerged from the womb of the world on the back of the first horse. And not only is it poetic, but it is also a subversion of the patriarchal values that presently dictate Dothraki culture, as we're told that only men set foot on the Mother of Mountains. And I think that this ascension of the Mother of Mountains on Dragonback is going to be the first of many things that solidify Daenerys' eventual deification by the Dothraki. The Shining Lady, the Lady of Light, their mother goddess. And after Daenerys' death, that gendered subversion will be carried on by Viserion, the living legacy of the Lady of Light, the new Mother of Dragons, claiming the Mother of Mountains as her own sacred lair of fertility. And for me, that's doubly reinforced by the Womb of the World being a symbol of fertility. They rode to the Dothraki lake called the Womb of the World. Naked, she stepped gingerly into the water. The moon floated on the still black waters, shattering and reforming as her ripples washed over it. Dany cupped her fingers, lifted the sacred waters over her head to cleanse herself and her child within. And what I love here is that she's cleansing herself and her child within, the child being Rhaego, and this is a fertility thing for her and for Rhaego. Rhaego is then part of the sacrifice for Viserion, specifically the part of the sacrifice that frees her fertility of its reliance on Daenerys. So then having Viserion retire to the womb of the world is bringing another thread full circle. Vaes Dothrak is not only sacred, but it is remote, and that would allow Viserion and her children freedom to grow and freedom to hunt. Though I expect that they will be well fed by offerings from the Dothraki. And being this remote and surrounded by Dothraki would aid in preventing other people from coming to bother the dragons. The Dothraki themselves having too much reverence for the dragons as an extension of their mother goddess to claim them in that sense. Instead, we would see these dragons have lifelong blood riders. These blood riders could be assigned to Viserion and her children through some great ritual performed by the Dosh Khaleen. And to be a dragon blood rider would be the highest honor in Dothraki culture, which would then be reoriented around Dany as their goddess figure. And this is a complete subversion of the Dothraki having traditionally been the huntsmen to now being the shepherds. Perhaps I cannot make my people good, but I should at least try to make them less bad. And I would argue that Viserion having blood riders is already foreshadowed in the text. A blood rider was more than a guard. They were the Khaal's brothers, his shadows, his fiercest friends. Blood of my blood. They shared a single life. If the Khaal died at the hands of some enemy, they lived only long enough to avenge him and then follow him joyfully to the grave. Sometimes she found herself wishing her father had been protected by such men. When her son sat the Iron Throne, she would see that he had blood riders of his own to protect him from treachery. She's speaking of Rhaego and the Iron Throne, but her true legacy will be Viserion owing her bond-free fertility to Rhaego's sacrifice upon the Mother of Mountains. I would love to see this expressed as the epilogue in A Dream of Spring from the perspective of a Dosh Khaleen who is performing a dragon blood rider initiation ceremony. I think that would be a really great way to see the reorientation of the Dothraki to a matriarchal system. I think it would be a really good way to see the intensity of the reverence that they have for the dragons. And then, of course, an excellent way to finally see the baby dragons, the free baby dragons. Because I also very much believe that in breaking the fertility reliance, Daenerys also freed Viserion's children of the blood bond. Because these eggs will not be born of a bond with a human. So there you have it. That is Viserion as legacy. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it.